There we
Hello,
go.
everyone. Welcome. My name is Jamie Arute, along with Edward Pocock from Training for Survival. We are here tonight to give a expert opinion here from Ed on the attempted assassination to Donald J. Trump. We're going to get started in just a few minutes, but as you're logging on, if you could just do me a favor, give us a hello, and also let us know how our audio and video feed is, that you can hear us clearly and everything is good to go. And we're going to dig into things in just a few minutes. How are things with you, Ed?
Been good. It's been an amazing few days, though. Unbelievable.
Mm.
Um, all the stuff going on, but it's living in some amazing times. They had American Calamity, by the way, just got a 5-star rating from Reader's Choice.
Of course it did. Yeah,
Yeah, it was nice. Nice little review critique. I thought that was nice. Expecting
absolutely.
more. Got folks
So,
checking in.
yeah,
It's nice to see
absolutely.
people come in. It's nice.
We got Michael on. Barbara, how are you? Good evening. Sound great. Ed sounds great. I sound great. We both sound great. Liza, thanks for joining us tonight. Jennifer, good to see you as well. We are going to start to dig into things. I know that there's a lot of important questions. I know at the time of the incident and that night, um, my phone was going crazy. Ed, your phone was going nuts. You and I were
Unbelievable.
communicating back and forth with Michael and David, and kind of, it's just been a crazy, crazy few days. So I know that a lot of you have questions. You messaged me privately about some questions. We're going to dig into those and probably answer a lot of them as we go through our presentation. If you have questions while we're going through this presentation, we want to hear what they are. So just type in a Q with a colon in the comments and type your question afterwards, so that if we need to go back to it, we can go back and make sure that we answer all the questions that you put out. Or you can wait to the very end, but sometimes you kind of forget what the question might be. So as soon as you have a question for us, hit that Q button and a colon, type the question in the comments, and we'll make sure that we get into it. But I know we've got really dug in deep here, Ed, with a lot of good information. Barbara says
Well,
great audio and video, awesome. Dusty, how are you? Good to see you. Uh,
nice.
and we're going to dig in. So Ed, without further ado, let's take it away.
Well, we did do a lot of digging today. So for the folks that are watching here today, uh, Jamie and I did a lot of running around today putting this together. So you're talking to the copywriters and the producers all in one.
A lot of hats today, man.
A lot of hats today. But we felt what I'm going to try to do today, first, just for those who don't know my background, from 1993, it was really 91, I started doing rifle shooting. But from 93 to about 2005, I was as an active police sniper, competed all over the world, met guys and girls from primarily men from all these different uh, anti-terrorist teams from around the world, um, top-notch teams from the United States. We competed against military. We've had SEAL teams, you name it. Met these guys, have broken bread with them. Um, Loved it. We won a gold medal in '98 for national, fourth in the world in '05. My partner was Mike Kahn. He was ninth in the world. We were fourth as a team. That was a huge honor. Competed against the Chinese, Israelis, you name it. They were there. And I had the fortune of winning 1999 Top Gun. I'm very familiar with um, this area. And the goal here tonight is to hopefully give folks a better understanding of what's real as compared to what you're hearing on the news. And that's the reason why we felt this was important, because of the amount of questions we were getting. Jamie, why don't we go to cut one first?
Got
And
it.
I'll start with just the basics of the team. So everybody's seen these iconic shots of the sniper team on the roof, right? So I want to talk real quickly, and this is going to play into the overall discussion. Understanding that what you're looking at for a rifle up there is most likely a bolt action Remington 700, and what they like to call international accuracy makes a wonderful rifle. But they also make that wonderful rifle has a chassis system that the Remington can bolt right into, and it has a magazine capacity underneath it. Right, it's a phenomenal setup, unbelievably accurate. The Remington 700 was always a kind of a direct American competitor to the Winchesters we shot. So I've had a lot of good folks I know who used Remington 700s. The Secret Service, I believe, is using them here. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, their caliber of choice used, or or still use the 300 Win Mag. Okay, so they're using a big round. We use 308 Winchester, which was plenty. That's important for folks to know. But more importantly, when we were competing, the goal for law enforcement shooters is obviously, and snipers, is to be able to hit small objects out to at least 200 meters. And what I mean by that, well, 1-inch circle or basically the size of a quarter out to about 200 meters or 225 yards. You're always putting your round in that hole. Always. You do not get the opportunity to miss. On the FBI course that I qualified in back in '93, the failure rate was 1 round out and you were done, right? But you really had to shoot a perfect score. That was, that's what you need to do. If you can't do that because either yourself or your equipment, you're out. So I went through that. But more importantly, when we were at the top of our game, and my partner Mike Kahn, who's normally on these shows too, most of the time, if you read a bolt action, you can fire an accurate round about 1 round every 4 seconds. So just keep that in mind. These are bolt action rifles that they use. And when we were at the top of our game, we could take the 6 rounds in our Winchesters, unload those into a quarter at 100 meters at about 2.5 seconds. We'd empty the magazine basically in 15 seconds or less. That's fast, by the way. That's you're almost unbelievably fast. 2.5 seconds at 100 meters, and they're all going in that one hole, in that one circle. So it's as hard as it sounds, and it takes years of practice to be able to obtain that. Would you ever use that on the job? Probably not. But the goal is to hype yourself up to train, so that when you have to take the one singular shot, it's almost like it's so easy because you've trained so much harder than that. So I think most people, especially the ones that usually frequent this channel, they can understand that. So remember that 2.5 seconds thing, because that's going to play into this conversation here. Their scopes, to give you an idea, this is also going to play into it. I believe they're using Knife Force ATAC Rs. They're 7 power to 35 power scopes. So that means a 35 magnification they have that capability of. That's more powerful than the scopes I was using. I found that after 25 magnification, it made it hard because you get a lot of mirage and stuff like that. So the real deal here with this is they had a scope where on a cool day, I mean, you could see the pimples on somebody's forehead at 200 meters. That this scope is that powerful. I mean, there's identification's not an issue. And that little device that's on top, I've had a lot of questions on that. That is in essence a measuring device using lasers, and it's a Mars laser system. I never had a use for them because, and I'll explain to you all in a little bit why, but they have that equipment attached to the rifle. So that's what they have on there. So that's something for you guys to keep in mind equipment wise. It's very important. You have a 35 power magnification scope, and you have a rifle these men are most likely very skilled. I don't know what their capabilities are, but they're minimum 4 seconds. I'd say they're probably a little lower than that. They probably can move rounds out around 2.5 to 3 seconds. I'm going to make that assumption here. So go to cut 2, Jamie. Okay, so let's get a lay of the land, right? So we all understand what we're talking about. The shooter is off, obviously to the left that they show. You see where Trump is pointing to on the stage, President Trump, and he's represented by the shooter's line of sight is that blue line. And then, of course, you have roughly, the blue line's a little off. He was a little deeper into the building than that, but that's okay. And then, of course, you have the sniper team north, and I'll get into why there was another sniper team on that further southern building. But there was a sniper team there that basically both the shooter and the target that the culprit were both probably about 130 yards. So that's not much. So that's a short distance. Not only that, let me just make the record clear here on this. You're not adjusting for wind at 130 yards or 125 meters. That doesn't even come into play here. The adjustment on your scope, I know for a 308 Winchester is we would go 1 centimeter click up to get us to 0 at 125 meters, which would be this range. So on a 300 Win Mag, I don't know what that is, but 300 Win Mag, I mean, that puppy's coming out. That's flaming when it comes out of that barrel, and it's in 130 yards. I mean, that's absolutely nothing for a 300 Win Mag. They're designed usually for much longer ranges. So as I talk to you about putting rounds in eye socks, this is well within their range, right? And this is just kind of leaving the table open so you can understand the lay of the land here as we go forward. This is very important to understand this. You can also see, I want you to take note of the water tower that's in the foreground or the background also. That's another target. We're going to get into that a little bit later too. So there's two things I wanted to accomplish here for everybody watching. One, understanding the capabilities of the equipment that the Secret Service were using. Two, understanding the lay of the land and where these people are all positioned individually. And I think I did all right there. Yeah, I'm going to get to that. Paul, you'll get that answered later on. You'll get more of an answer on that question. Nobody has any questions on the layout and the equipment, and everybody understands the difference between a bolt action and a semi-automatic rifle. The culprit was using an AR-15 styled rifle, 223 caliber, 5.56. That's what he was using, semi-automatic. That's where gas automatically makes, every time you pull the trigger, the bolt goes back and forth. Where a bolt, you have to physically lift it, pull back, go forward, drop it down, and then shoot. Most of the people on this probably all know that. But all right, let's go to, now we'll start getting into the times, because this is where it starts hitting the nitty gritty. Go to cut 3. So this time's important because by this moment in time, we're going to play the whole video here, the one I used to evaluate. There's a few things as they break this thing down. The president, all these were put together, so the timing of all these videos came together. I thought this was the best one I saw. So on the right, you see the snipers, the Secret Service snipers up on the roof. Bottom middle, you see President Trump. At this particular point in time, 2.2.64 seconds, the culprit had already fired 4 shots. They were off. Boom, boom, boom. And I'm going to get more detail about why I believe none of those first 4 shots were the Secret Service up on top of the building. It'll all make sense. But the bottom line is, when you watch this, 4 shots have been fired already at 2:02.64. So just keep that in mind. But Jamie, why don't you go ahead and roll the video for cut 4 so people can see what I analyzed. Oh, we got to go back further. Not too bad, not too far.
I think this is important to discuss as well. So if you could just tell them what's happening here, for those that don't understand, there's a time at the bottom, and you have President Trump speaking on the right side of the screen. On the left side of the screen, at the exact same time he is speaking, it's matched up perfectly with time codes. You're going to see the people seeing the shooter up on the roof and trying to get law enforcement involved and talking about it. And you're going to hear their audio along with Trump's audio. So listen clearly. If you can't hear the audio, please let me know and we'll turn it up a little bit louder. But we thought this is very important to play, right? Right, Ed?
It is. Keep in mind, they were warning them long before this video started, but the 0 mark on this, it just worked out. He started talking. I figured, well, we have to use something, and this is the best one I've been able to see timeline. But yeah, you're right. This to show all this time that goes by, they already know there's a guy on top of the roof and they're trying to warn people.
Yeah. So please watch the next couple minutes here. It's very important for where we're going to be going on this journey afterwards. Here we go.
Look, they're all pointing.
The Atlantic, maybe the Pacific.
Yeah, someone's on top of the roof. Look. There he is right there. Right there. See him? He's laying down. See him?
Yeah, he's laying down.
And still I'm here with you fighting like hell to get a senator
What's happening?
and to make sure we take back the White House, because if we do, we're going to make America better than ever before. We're going to make it.
Yeah, look.
And it's
There he
not
is.
easy, because we have millions and millions of people in our country that shouldn't be here. Dangerous people, criminals. We have criminals. We have drug dealers. We have people that should not be here. And it's much tougher than if it happened. We have the strongest border ever. In recorded history, we had the best border. In fact, if they could ever put up a chart, I don't know if they can do it. Do you guys have access to that chart that I love so much? You don't mind if I go off teleprompter, do you? Because these teleprompters are so damn boring, I try and explain that. Oh, there's a, wow. You guys are doing it. They're getting better with time. My guys, take a look at that chart. Take a look at the arrow on the bottom. See the big red arrow, right? So that's when I left office. That was the lowest point, and that comes right from the government services, comes right out of Border Patrol. Take a look at that. So that arrow is the lowest amount of illegal immigration ever in recorded history into our country. And then the worst president in the history of our country took over. And look what happened to our country. Probably 20 million people. And you know, that's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old. And if you want to really see something that says,
I hope he's turning this way. Be careful, guys.
We got breaking news. We got breaking news coming in. Shots fired. Seems to be shots fired at the Trump rally.
See the lady there waving for the man. Hold it right there.
Is he okay?
You can see him waving in the back over here. As the rounds were coming in from that building from the culprit, they had hit people right there in that stand, so those rounds had come in through. And as this thing goes on, you'll see where the other rounds are hit. There's water coming out of the tractor. It's lively. There was an impact there. It shows up. But anyways, Jamie, you can kill this now because we're going to be going. So the bottom line on this is all that video that we just showed you to just show how much was going on here. I only focused on 16.2 seconds today. Just let that sink in for a minute. That was where all the action took place. Never mind the culprit beforehand. That's a whole other subject. I'm talking when the first round fired, the president's perception and reaction time, and the speed of the rounds that were coming in. So let's take a look at that for a minute. So, Jamie, go back to cut 2 if you don't mind. So 2.264 I showed in there. Now there's a couple things you got to keep in mind on that. But by 201.48, right? 2 rounds had already been shot and heard. So at 201.48, 2 shots have already been heard. By 202.64 that I show here, 2 more shots have been heard. Now remember what I said about bolt action rifles. You're getting a shot off if you're lucky, 2.5 to 3 seconds. If you're sublime on a bolt action, there's no way these rounds came from the Secret Service rifles. That one of these first 2 rounds most likely are the ones that impacted President Trump in the ear, and I'll get into that in a minute. The ones that followed up, they were too fast, too quick, unless these guys on the roof were firing those simultaneously, which I doubt. There was nothing. This is all going to make sense. By 203.24, a mere 1.5 seconds later, 2 more rounds. So by the time you get to 203.24 seconds, in that short amount of time of 2.76 seconds, 6 shots were fired, at least by my ear. That's a lot of lead coming down range, and one of those rounds probably impacted that person. They were probably in the stands too. Those are from the culprit on top of the building, so they had fired. I believe that the president was hit by one of the first 2 rounds, and I'm gonna prove that in a few minutes here. But I want to go through the shot sequences here. The next volley of shots, it was either 5 or 6, not exactly sure, came in rapid succession, and they happened between 205.65 and 207.28, roughly 1.63 seconds. There were 5 or 6 more shots that occurred at that point. The president was already down, and apparently, well, he was covered by his agents. The last shot that comes in, everybody seems to forget this one. There was one shot that came in at 2.17 seconds and 68. That shot, one lone shot, I believe that was a sniper up on the roof taking out the suspect. And that shot came in 16.2 seconds after the first volley had been acknowledged. And when you watch this video, and if you can watch it on your own, it's easy to find online. I'm sure Jamie can provide a link. You'll see when the first rounds come in, that sniper rifle that dips. And you can use that white pole. If you look at the sniper position, you'll see in front of him there's a white vent pole that comes out. You can use that as a reference point, but you can actually see it's almost like an oh shit, and they look over to like, where the hell is that coming from, and then back down and they settled on the target again. This is all roughly in the same time period as when the president had perceived that he had been shot. So that's another one. Let's go to cut 7, Jamie. I think we have that one. I think we can. So at cut 7, at 2:02:24, that's before the second 2 shots were heard. President Trump, right there in that bottom middle screen, he's using his right arm to lift up. He's perceived that he's been shot in the ear. Something's not right. He's perceived something's not going on, or something is going on, and he needs to verify it with himself. This is typical human reaction. It's perception first, and then reaction. And just for your listeners to know this, my other thing that I did a lot of things when I was in the department. One of them I did was investigate fatal accidents, and perception, reaction time, and reinvestigating and reconstructing accidents. This was my wheelhouse. This is the average time for perception and reaction is 1.5 seconds in total. An F1 driver, maybe 1.2. So your tenths of a second are exponential. It's almost like earthquakes, right? So when you get into this and you start looking at this, the first rounds, as I said, it's the second set came in at 2:02:64. He probably was hit by the first rounds. That's what I used to prove that. He perceives this thing. He perceives this thing pretty quickly. And I'll get into that in a little bit more detail. But he perceives things pretty fast. And his reaction time, I saw that take place at 2:03:4. I believe that's cut 8, Jamie. Yeah. So that's when he's like just beginning to do his dive. He is already perceived and he is now reacting. He is going to go to the deck. These are important times, folks, because that 2:03:4 seconds, 2.3 seconds, and we're getting into like tenths of seconds now. When you get to that point, he's made a decision to hit the deck at this point. That's before the last 2 shots were fired in that string of first 6. So this is pretty impressive that he did that. Matter of fact, for those of you that were keeping score and you wanted to see what this president's perception and reaction time is, I had to rework my numbers because I'm thinking to myself, this guy is 78 years old, right? Something like that. You got all, and keep in mind all the studies that are out there. And there's a lot of studies on this. The more you're distracted by stimuli, the more your time is going to be delayed. That's what distracted drivers. Just put that in perspective of the field I was in, right? Well, try to imagine this. He's at a full-blown rally. This is about as much stimuli as you could possibly have is going on right now, right? And this is he basically had a 0.76 reaction time. 0.76. 0.5 is considered, that's the average for, it's like 0.49 or something like that according to most studies, but 0.5 for, just the WAG. All that stimuli going on, he was able to have the head about him in 0.76 seconds to realize what the hell's going on here. So he perceived it quick. Might have saved his life. So you have that come on. So then I wanted to see what his reaction when he dived. It took him a little longer to do that. I'm sure the shock of the blood and all that other stuff hit him. But even that, it took him 1.15 seconds to actually react and start that dive we're at there. It could be a little less than that. His perception reaction time is a 78-year-old male with massive stimuli was 1.91 seconds in worst case scenario, assuming he got hit by the second round that came in. If he got hit by the first round, that's actually 1.81 seconds. He's only 0.3 of a second to 0.4 of a second slower than a 25-year-old driving down the street and reacting to a deer coming across him. That's pretty impressive. I mean, but these times, more importantly, all matter. So when you're seeing all these news reports and they're telling you all these things, you know the story now. This is how this went down and how the timeline worked in with the rounds being fired. You can't make this stuff up. This is, I mean, my ear may be off on the shots. There may be somebody with a better ear that can pick these out better, but these times matter. And by that point, the president was on the ground and he was relatively safe. So now that you all know that, and the big question that a lot of you have, so when you're hearing time, a lot of things that I've heard, the other questions I've got, because everybody's been like, well, what happened? Well, there was a lot of other shots, I told you, and then there was the last shot at the end. I believe that was the sniper team taking them out. Now, keep in mind what they're trained to do. You're leasing a 300 Winchester Magnum out, and they've got major overpenetration issues. So just because you hit a human body, you still got to know where that round's going to go, just in case it exits and it's going to go. The same thing with 308s. That was one of our biggest concerns when you pulled the trigger. So those guys on the roof, they were going to take the shot. It wasn't going to be like a series of, oh, geez, we'll get close. This isn't the military. Like, oh, I missed. I'm going to put another round and send another one down the tube. That's not how law enforcement works. Every round is accountable. And when you're shooting something like a 300 Winchester Magnum, that's a big deal. So that's why that last shot. And by the way, everybody's like, well, why was it so quiet? In that video, you can also see them. They got cans, silencers, or suppressors on their rifles. So right there is a good one. That's good, Jamie. Perfect. That big fluffy thing on the end, is not a can of Coca-Cola. That's a silencer or a suppressor on a 300 Win Mag. And you got to keep in mind too, just so you guys know how much I was into this stuff. When you put a can, we call them cans, suppressor on a rifle, the thing that makes a rifle so accurate, the barreling, the rifling, the manufacturer, who it is, the chambering, how the bolt locks in. But one thing that's usually overlooked, and the reason why you keep barrels free floated, is a barrel has its own harmonics. And the trick to accuracy is consistency. You have to have consistent harmonics, consistent lockup, consistent lands and grooves, consistent chambering. You get the theme. When you put a can on the end of the barrel, it changes the harmonics. I'm not saying it makes the gun less accurate. It changes the harmonics. You have to zero your gun with the can. If you don't have a can and you took that off and put it on, it's a different zero. So just keep in mind, when you see these folks and they have these on, these sniper rifles, that can's probably permanent. Only a fool would remove it and think they're going to hit the same point of impact. And for those of you that shoot AR-15s with suppressors, you know what I'm talking about. Even shooting those, there's a change of impact. Anyway, that's your can lesson. But the point is that's why that is why that round, when it went off so close to all the cameras, didn't sound so loud. Whereas the rounds that were coming from the culprit sounded louder. And the reason why they sounded louder is because he only had a flash hider that I can tell on that AR, and that would be full. You'd get all the sound. And 100 yards, that's about what it sounds like. So that answers that question anyways. I wanted to make sure that was done, because I've heard that too, wondering why the last round wasn't, that's what it was. It was these guys. I think that's the one they took their shot. Keep in mind, they took that shot 16 seconds after this thing was pretty much over. So that from the time the first rounds landed in and the time they took the shot, I think I have it in here somewhere, it was 16.2 seconds. And that's a long time, folks.
Yeah.
That's a long time, especially if you're the one getting the incoming rounds. So anyway, that's that one. Jamie, because I want to talk about the other questions now that I've gotten a lot of, and I hope I'm doing this well enough, laying it out. The next one is why didn't they take the shot earlier, right? And I've heard a lot of things on that, and I'll go over it. The other one was, how the hell did this guy get up there, right? And of course, that leads to a whole bunch of other issues. And why the heck didn't anybody just, make a call? Like, there was communication problems. So I want to get into that now. How we got up on the roof. Cut 9, Jamie. Let's peel that onion back. Okay, now when I first saw this photo, and this was given to me, I thought this was a deep fake. I said, there's no way in God's green earth that someone was able to put a 20-foot aluminum ladder on the side of a building on an area where it could be a perch, where somebody could take a shot at the President of the United States. That just didn't compute with me. Well, there you have it. I come to find out that ladder was there, and that is how he got up. And all that baggage you see off to the left there is, a matter of fact, the black line, that's the lower one, that's the rifle. And then of course there's probably I don't know when this was taken, if the body had been removed or if they blurred it out. It's hard to tell. But the bottom line is, he was able to get up there in pretty quick fashion, is what it looked like to me. So scary stuff. So he did get up there with a ladder. So now I know how he got up on the roof. The other thing I've heard too, by the way, I don't know if this came out today, so I'll address it since we're looking at the building face. The story came out today that this is where the local police mustered. They were actually in that building, blah, blah, blah. I can tell you from running a lot of things when I was a captain and lieutenant, we would have a briefing in a lot of places. And the only thing left in there when we're done is usually bread, donut crumbs and old coffee cups. Because everybody leaves. You're going to your posts and the place is empty. It's just a place for everybody to gather. So don't be so quick when you hear those reports, like, the cops are sitting in there with their feet up, drinking coffee, as this guy crawled on the roof above their heads. So I'm cautioning you when you listen to these things. It could be, that could come out, but I just find that incredible. But then again, I thought this ladder picture was incredible too. So now that we have that all set up and you can see what the ladder looked like, I'm just making sure I'm not missing nothing here. Cut 10, Jamie, if you don't mind. So this is the culprit. So now I'm going to get back now. We've talked about the speed of rounds that could come out of a bolt action and why I believe that the other ones were AR-15 rounds. The other one that comes up all the time that I've heard, and this is where when you're watching CNN or these other networks, they're bringing on all these military experts, the guys who shot the longest distance, or the guy who had another incredible thing that he might have done for the country. Heroes, all of them. There's no disputing that. But they don't know this craft. It's different. It's a different lane. It's a different place. The rules of engagement are not like the military. They're totally different. They're not sworn officers. They don't have to hold themselves in a combat zone. And one of them was talking about identification, and it was talking about, I'm not going to name it because I don't want to out him. And he's like, you can't identify when you have a 35 power scope at 125 meters. Trust me, you see everything. The only thing that's going to obscure you is something between you and that thing. You're going to be able to see everything. Like I said, the pimples on the forehead you're going to see. So there's none of that. And then, of course, you're saying to yourself, well, what if it looked like a cop? Now that's a good question. Does that look like a police officer to you with this fuzzy, lousy shot? I don't know no one I've ever worked with, ever, that had their hair down and showed up with dock shoes. They would see that too, by the way. All this stuff you would notice. No one's showing up with a T-shirt. So this is, when identification-wise, if they had eyes on this suspect, they knew something was wrong. Not only that, no one points their rifles, no matter who you are, towards the principal, which was the president. No one does that. Not even the Secret Service. So if you see somebody taking an AR-15 rifle, leveling it towards your vicinity or the president's, which are so close together, you might not be able to tell which it is, which is why they probably flinched on that roof when the rounds were coming in. The reality here is, if they had eyes on this person, they would have known it was a suspect, and he would have had to go down. So that's if they had eyes on him. I can't see how they didn't. But now go back to cut 2, Jamie, again, if you don't mind. That was the best picture I could find of the culprit, by the way. So again, this is not a long distance in the world of law enforcement. And again, it's different than the military, folks. So one of the things I want to kind of bring up, in law enforcement, you have two ways you can use deadly force. Two, in protection of yourself, that you believe reasonably that you're going to be under an imminent threat of deadly force being used upon you as a police officer. That applies to civilians too, I might add. The only difference is in some states you got to prove retreat, but I'm not going to get that deep in the weeds. But the reality is, that's just being human. You have that as a law enforcement officer. You have that one. The second prong that exists, not always, but definitely with police officers, is in the protection of someone else. You're authorized to use deadly force. Now, in the case of a sniper, that starts getting a little wiggly, right? Because you got what you can see and what's going on. And you got to make your judgment based on what you can see and what's going on through your scope. And others looking. He had a sniper partner next to him. I don't know how well they were communicating together, but they were there. I can tell you right now, my partner and I are almost laying on top of one another on these calls because you want to make sure that you're close enough where you can get in the other person's ear. And it's not because we liked each other. It's just because that was the way we had a role when we were out there. You had to be almost on top of one another. And so in this particular case here, this was close enough where they should have been able to identify this person and they should have been able to take him out. There's absolutely no, there's, when I hear the identification issue, I dismiss it completely. So then now the question is, what were they responsible for? And how does that work, Ed, is the next thing I usually get. So go to the next cut 11, Jamie. So military uses these, but they're called range cards. And a range card, you're taking all your top areas you should look at. And in the process of doing that, you have a zone of responsibility. In their case, it's usually 180 degrees. Well, wouldn't you know it, your range card shows 180 degrees. Imagine that. So they have this whole thing that's laid out before you. And on that range card, you draw out, you can do this freehand. You don't need something as fancy as writing a range, but they're nice. And you could write out the buildings, the water tower, how many meters it is to that. That you pre-do all this, especially if you're going to an event. I don't need a laser rangefinder on my rifle. I'd show up there first with a Leica and I just bang all these things out, write them on my range card. I know immediately what my dope and holdovers have to be without having to touch the rifle. Again, remember, there's no windage here. The bullet doesn't need that adjustment at this shorter range. That'd all be in your range card. So then, as a reasonable human being, you don't have to be a police officer or a police sniper to figure this one out. What would be your primary targets that you would want to keep an eye on? Water tower? Roof buildings? The roofs of buildings? Yeah, I'd say so. Far away, maybe areas. And keep in mind, when you go to the next cut, Jamie, the one I just sent you, to 12, because that's why I did this. So, keep in mind, that angle that shooter was coming in at, when you see that red line, I picked this one because it had the red line. There were bleachers directly behind President Trump, and then there were bleachers just off to the left side of that red line. He had a cone, this tiny cone that he could shoot through. So when you were setting up your range card, imagine if you're the sniper setting up your range card, you can see the water tower in the background. Yep, that would have been on my card. I might have actually assigned my partner to that site. And the other way and then he would have covered other areas in there. The trees probably would have prevented anybody from shooting from the wood line, and that would have been covered by units. So the water tower would have been important. And then that area through the other side where it says gunman, that whole roof would have been in my scope pan the whole time on a 180 degree scan. Now there's other areas, but if you check to see if the roof is clear and there's nobody up there, you can look around a little bit and then you go back to your primary again. So this is the kind of stuff that, and it's funny because when you're a sniper and you fill these things out, your commander in charge, one of the first things they're going to ask you is, what's your range card, your dope card look like? What are your target zones? And they literally go, did you think of this? I mean, that's the whole reason why you do that. They know where you're keeping an eye on so they can deploy their ground forces better. This, of course, leads me to the next one. This is the one the military guys, they just don't get it. In the area where you're shooting and whether or not they claimed identity, I've heard all kinds of different excuses on what identity, and couldn't identify them. Maybe that was the reason. Another awful thing that happens in the police sniping world that most people, they call red light, green light. The dumbest thing ever, right? You don't cease to be a police officer because you're holding on to a sniper rifle and you got an assigned responsibility. Your responsibilities stay regardless of what your commander's whispering in your ear. Shy of a hostage situation where some coordination, or actually more than some, coordination needs to take place. On a lone gunman on a roof with an AR-15, I don't need command permission to take that shot. And I'll be hard-pressed to find another sniper who I know in my circle that would say, oh, no, I would wait until I got clearance from. Once you establish that that person is not a police officer, and that's one radio call. They had several minutes to do that. That person's going down. They're gone. That's it. They've got it coming, and they're going to get one. That's what would have happened there. But if they got a red light order and they're told they can't shoot, don't engage, outside our realm of responsibility, or whatever the hell the excuse they might have used, and those snipers stood down. Guys and gals, I'll tell you, when you go and you handle one of these big rifles, they're about 16 pounds, at least mine is. 16 pounds, your gear weighs another 30, you're lugging it around. That's a lot of responsibility you're towing with you. You have a rifle that's capable of turning somebody's head inside out. You have the unbelievable power at your disposal in training. You get up there, you see something like this, you are very, very, very judicious in how you use that power. And when you're up there and you see something like this, your responsibility as a police officer just doesn't go away. Sorry, it doesn't. In the military, they can maybe live under rules of engagement and their other nonsense that they have to do in a battlefield. But as a law enforcement officer, that doesn't go away. You just don't put that in a mayonnaise jar and throw it off the edge of the roof. You keep that. And if they tell you red light and you see a target there, they can't see what you can see, because that's exactly, by the way, what command's going to say in the end. They're going to say, well, I couldn't see what you saw, officer, so you should have disregarded me because you have an oath. That's exactly what it would be said to you, because I also know the bureaucracy of law enforcement well, too, and it's not pretty. They should have taken a shot. If they saw this guy, he should have been gone. The president should have been dropped to the ground by the Secret Service and carried out of there on a sled the moment they saw this guy up there and that guy was, trying to set up. This should have been all done. It never should have happened. And the one of the other things I got to, I'm trying to remember all the questions that I had. There was another team on the south side, from what I'm being told, which makes sense. And there was a south building sniper team, just like there was the north one. The north one's the one that's in the video. The south one, and what do you think their area of responsibility was? You know what I mean? It's not the crowd. They have a CAT team for that, and it's the other 180 degrees that they're going to be covering, or maybe downrange, like facing where the president is. Maybe they were facing that way, but they have their own set of responsibilities in areas they're supposed to cover, and the north side covers there. So if you hear that, that, no confusion. Another one, I'll
for people who don't know, what is a CAT team?
Oh, that's the counter assault team that Secret Service has. It's like those guys are great, by the way. Fun to work with. All hard chargers. There's no such thing as the B CAT team. I don't know, and I don't know who was assigned to the president's detail here either. I'm assuming these are all A-team players that the Secret Service is assigned to President Trump's protection detail. I'm going to always make that. I'm always going to give the benefit of the doubt to the Secret Service, but I didn't see an A-team performance here. Is what it comes down to, and I know they're better. I know what their capabilities are, and I'm telling you right now, they're not happy about this. I listened to Don Bongino today on one of the stations talking, and he's like, he was in the secret. He's like, this is not good. This is not something to run a victory lap on. This is a failure, and it's a bad one. And that's why I wanted to point this out. One more point, and I'll leave it open, Jamie, to people to write questions. Communications has come up a lot too. and I was involved a lot with that with Michael. We did a lot with that when I was on the job. There's a device called that Cisco makes. Cisco makes a wonderful product, and it's a nerve truck. And this truck, I think they got it down to a pickup now. I don't even think it has to be a dually like it used to be, showing my age. And but they have a truck that comes in, and they just flick a couple switches, and everybody's on. They've got the same radio channels. This thing converts everything, and then allows everybody to hear one another. It's a wonderful device. It's used in all the hurricanes. It's probably, all the police departments around the country are buying all these armored cars. There should be a nerve truck, 2 or 3 of them in every state. I mean, they're just, what they provide is communication, which saves lives. A lot more than a heavy truck on broken roads is gonna do. But communication, I don't know if they had that or not, and that was what the delay was. But that's the spiel. I hope I covered everything I said I was going to cover, Jamie.
I think you did, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions. There's a couple already that we'll address in a second. If you have a question for Ed, just put in a Q and a colon and your question, type it in the box, and we'll be sure to address it. But I have a question on the communications for you. If they did have that truck there and would everyone be on the same channel, or would Secret Service say, we have our own channel, we'll have someone monitoring that other channel, or do the troopers, local PD, the Secret Service and snipers all on one channel? How would that usually work?
Well, it depends on how they want to do it. I imagine the ones that are in close, I mean, it's all on how they want to set it up, but the snipers probably have radios that are capable of transmitting on 2 channels, and they can monitor both of them at the same time. Mm-hmm. So what channels they wanted to monitor, they could, getting to your question directly, excuse me, they could set up as many channels as they want in that new system. So when all the radio transmissions come in, that setup can set up its own series of channels. So you can turn around and say, channel one is going to be general grounds. Channel 2 is going to be Overwatch and snipers. Anybody with elevated position. Channel 3 is going to be traffic. Channel 4 is going to be strictly for the CAT team. You could. In other words, you call the CAT team in, they're going to want, So it's not really that. It's actually magical to watch when you see how they put it together. And these guys, this is all they do is arrange these things. So I mean, I'd be shocked if they didn't have that out there.
Well, I agree with you. Let's say that it wasn't there. What would be the chain of command? Now we're talking several minutes here. If a local, police officer from that town saw there was someone on the roof, I would imagine that there would be a chain of command that he calls that in. His command then gets in contact with the other agency or command of that agency, or there would be a command center, correct? So that call goes in, you've got a command from Secret Service, a command from local PD, command from, the state troopers, right? All in one house. So local calls in, and all 3 are sitting right there, they're command operators, and hear the call come in, and then disseminate that information, correct?
Yeah, they
Old
would.
School way?
Normally what would happen is you'd have your crew, if let's say that command truck, right?
Yeah.
And you'd have a table, and all these people from the different agencies would be there, and they would coordinate. That's how it was done in the old days.
Right.
Because you couldn't get the radios to go. So you'd have a representative from each department. I find it difficult to believe that if there was the lowest ranking part-time police officer was assigned to the deep fields out there, because everybody else wanted to be close to the president. So they probably threw their part-time guy, let's say, out in the middle of nowhere, or maybe a very senior person didn't want to be bothered. All that person would have had to say when those people came up to him was, sniper, 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 get the president down. You're going to ignore that message on the radio? No. So, I mean, bottom line is that could have came to your local PD into that command post, and they'd be ludicrous if they didn't respond to that. No one did that, to my knowledge.
Do you think they'll release the radio communications from that day?
Oh, yeah, they're going to have to. I mean, they're going to be a lot of mysteries here. I mean, I'm dying to know if these guys are being told, if they had eyes on this person. And because let's face it, the only reason why that person stopped shooting is because that sniper drilled the suspect.
Right, and did his job.
Did his job. That's it. Everybody said, "Oh, there was shots being exchanged." No, there wasn't. No, there wasn't. He fired that one round and boom, it was over. I mean, a 300 Win Mag hits a human being at 130 yards. I can assure you, you ain't getting up from that hit. So, I mean, that was one round and it was over. And I don't think that was, I mean, maybe there was. Maybe they did fire. If they did and missed, ugh, I mean, that's not so good. I mean, it wasn't like he was moving around. I mean, it's a lot of things.
Do we have confirmation if that sniper team, the one that engaged the gunman, was Secret Service sniper team, or as they go into some municipalities, like if they go into New York, their team, their sniper team will help them out and they'll cover. I'm wondering here what the deal was. Was it
so those guys? If you go in on their patch, it's there's like a flag above and it says police, and underneath in very dim letters it says Secret Service. I've seen multiple versions of that patch, and they all say the same thing. Some it's blurred out. Some say it doesn't say it. Well, if you zoom in on it, you can see it says Secret Service across the bottom.
You saw it on theirs.
On theirs, and
yeah, okay.
And so this brings me to another reason too. I was listening to a lot of these commentators are coming on, and they're it's like I've worked with the New York City guy. Let me tell you something about New York City. New York City's ESU unit is top shelf. If you get the privilege to be able to turn around and shoot with an emergency unit sniper on New York City, you're going to learn something about angle shooting. Those guys are amazing, and gals. I mean, they're just top shelf. And I heard this, sometimes we have to augment like their secondary. Wrong, my military friends. You are the secondary one. They put you on targets where they don't care how many rounds you expend because they don't have to worry about where your rounds are going. The police are all on those really hard target areas because they train for that. I mean, it's just fact. I mean, it's a different lane. The guys who serve in the service have their lane. The guys who do the police serve in their lane, and they're related. They're almost like kissing cousins, but that's about as far as it gets.
Wow.
They're totally different. Yeah, it's just totally different. So when you listen to a lot of these guys, and they come on the air, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I had 4 tours. That's great. I mean, God bless you for doing what you did, but what you did does not necessarily translate into the law enforcement world of precision shooting. Trust me, they're just different worlds."
Wow.
Yeah.
So, question, Scotty, welcome on, Scotty. I have to hope there was drone surveillance at all of these events. I don't understand why they wouldn't have a bunch of overhead cameras. I know some people messaged me, weren't there helicopters? Wasn't there something aerial? I thought the same thing. I haven't heard yay or nay of any type of aerial surveillance. Have you?
No, and in this day and age, you would figure. I mean, you can buy one of those little Mavic drones. I mean, they're peanuts.
Yeah.
If you're a sniper team, and even if you had a third guy on, and he was your security person, and you're on a roof, and you don't really need him for security, throw a freaking, one of those little DJs in his hands, and say, "Have at it." You know what I mean? And look around. There's a lot of mistakes here, Jamie. I mean, that's just another one because I haven't heard anybody mention anything about drones.
Right.
Nothing. So seems like a waste. And
if you guys are on with us right now and you like the content, please hit the like button. Help us get pushed out a little bit more in the algorithm. We really appreciate it. If you have questions for us, please type in a Q and a colon and type in your question. We'll make sure to get it answered. Ask away. We're here. So take advantage of the time. So Paul, let's get to Paul's.
Yeah, Paul has they didn't miss him, Paul. I mean, that last shot, I mean, there was a picture of the body.
I think he meant by missing as in didn't see.
How come,
yeah, it took so long to engage. I think they did see him from what I saw from the video. I think they were looking that direction and saw there was someone there.
I almost hope that's not the case.
Yeah.
I almost hope they never saw him because 16.2 seconds is a long time. And then you hear the rounds. I mean, you see him flinch. You see the rifle go down. And he pushes forward like, whoa, like what the hell was that?
Right.
And remember, they're on a roof. It's not exactly stable. And as far as the little more relaxed, as Trump is an ex-president. I mean, he's as of now as if he's the presidential nominee for the Republican Party, and they knew that then. They know the standards. I'll be blunt. I mean, RFK should have protection. I mean, look at the history of that poor family. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's like to me, we can give, billions of dollars overseas, and we can't protect, some of the most important, regardless of what you feel about them.
Right.
But some of the most important Americans that are, doing things today, they deserve the A team, period. I don't care what party they're from. If they're a major player, the Secret Service should be treating them as though they're going to carry the nuclear football someday. And I would like to assume that they're, the dirty secret is in law enforcement. I don't know how it is in a federal agency, but they're all the same. I mean, they are. There are people that you're going to put on the stack, on the hard calls, and you're going to have some people that just aren't going to go on the stack, which is the line that goes in the entry team, because they're okay, but they're not the best of what you got. So, that occurs in every team. Same thing with, my sniper teams. All my snipers were good, but because you wouldn't get certified to go out, period. You don't get to carry a rifle unless you were capable of shooting. And all mine went to many competitions to build that stress level up, so that, because it's the best, it's closest you can get to shooting, in a real environment, I guess.
Right.
So,
but
I hope
had
I
the
answered
conversation too about some of the team members and knowing the tactics of how they handled the situation afterwards. That some of those weren't the A team or the people that should have been in the stack.
It's possible. I mean, here's the thing with police sniping in general. You can get away with that everywhere else. Like the big thing now in the news is DEI, right? That's all you keep hearing about, DEI. Well, you ain't gonna get away with that with shooting a sniper rifle,
right,
brother. That
to get onto that team and to have that honor of being called that, you have to have the qualifications. The DEI does not exist, correct?
Well, you can't because let's face it, that is the last call. Look at here, even ground team failed.
That's why a lot of people are discussing that ground team.
They failed. So now what do you have left? Well, the only thing you have left is the sniper. They're usually always the last one, least appreciated, I might add, most of the time. And then when you turn around and you have no choice. That's why you have to be. You're not cowboying it, but at the same time, you have to be. When you accept that, you've got to be very comfortable in your relationship with Jesus Christ when you take that position, because you may have to kill someone, and you've got to be comfortable with that. And God, and you just have to be. It's deeper than you think, and there's no DEI with this, because if you can't hit a target, you're not qualified to have that, and you have to always apply it to. Would you be able to, hit what you need to hit at 100 yards? It's pass fail. Pass fail. Most shots are less than 100 yards, by the way. Pass fail, and you can never miss. Right. And you ask Mike. Mike's listening right now. He's laughing. He said, "God, it sounds like I'm on the range." I mean, the speeches I used to give people, they were brutal.
Right.
But they were all very, very, very good. All of them. My first partner, Richie Sargent, and then you had Johnny Mahan, Mike Kahn, myself. I mean, these were, and there was other guys that followed afterwards, and they took my training manual and they followed it. I mean, they're retired now, one of them. Phenomenal shooters. They were all like, it's what you got to have.
Right.
And I don't care what you you got to carry, and you got to carry all that stuff too. I mean, those rifles are heavy. I mean, mine's heavy, 16 pounds. I hope this has helped everybody. I hope this has been valuable to the people that watch. If you could respond, and it was enjoy. I see a few people saying great presentation. It was a lot went into this, but all the BS is taken out of it. I mean, it's.
Please hit that like button and put something in the comments to Edward. We appreciate you guys jumping online, and just let's expand upon the DEI, because a 30% increase in DEI was promised by the head of Secret Service when she took the position of the job, and so I think that's on a lot of people's minds when you see the presentation of the ground crew and what happened there.
That wasn't my specialty, so you and I talked. I stayed away from that, right? And but let me give all of you a little tactical tip, right? If you have your pistol out and you go to reholster, you don't need to look at your holster. I can tell a seasoned pistol shooter, combat pistol shooters, strictly, and how much practice they have with the equipment they have, strictly by how they reholster their firearm. I mean, pulling it out, all that in a bag of chips. But I can assure you, if I see you looking down to put your gun in your holster, or you forget that your holster is on a certain side of your body, these are called clues that you need more training. If you're wandering around, I'm not casting aspersions here. I'm human. I may not have run ground teams, but I am able of observing. And if you're running around, you look like a chicken with your head cut off. Yeah, you probably ought to find a different mode of work,
Right.
because this is when it all comes out. I mean, and to that point, a lot of people question President Trump, right? On, well, he's this, he's that. You get shot in the ear to the point where your eardrum may be burst. Nobody's reported that, but that was close. I mean, he heard that was a very angry bee going through his ear. And the fact that he was able to get up and fist pump the way he did, that you learn a lot about people when they're under fire, Jamie. I've seen guys under pressure and gals, and you learn all about their character.
Right.
And that little scene there, watch those camera views. The ground crew, I actually listened to Bongino on that, because that's really, and I know other guys, and they were he's pretty squared away on the ground crew side. He might have done some of the sniping too. I don't view sniping was a part-time profession. For me, it was 93 to the time I decided to hang up my cleats. I was all in, baby. I mean, I all in. I could tell you just about anything you want to know. I hung it up, retired, became a captain, then I retired. But it never leaves you. I still take, well, as you know, I took the rifle out when I came up to the range.
Yeah.
It was like riding a bike, but anyway, that was you. Jamie, did I miss anything? I hope I hit everything tonight.
I think we did hit everything. I mean, you won't believe the amount of time from about 7 o'clock this morning when I sent that first message over to you, Ed, to present time of putting this whole presentation together for you, and Ed, sending me slides and trying to put the cuts together, and a tremendous amount of work. So hopefully the end result was, I think it was a great presentation, and everything you guys wanted to hear and see, and educated you a lot as well on when you're watching these experts speaking on different news networks, and they come from a military background. I thought it was extremely important for everyone to understand the difference between the police world and the military world, and again, amazing qualifications for a lot of these military members, but there should be more from this police end, such as you, Edward, having this discussion about, all right, there's civilians, there's multiple people around. We're in America, we're not in the middle of Iraq, right? Like we had discussed earlier. So it's different. It's a lot different.
Yeah.
If you guys have questions, we're going to be closing things off here in a few minutes, but if you have any last-minute questions or comments, please put them in the chat box. Please hit that like button if you haven't done so already. Help us get this information out in the algorithm. And after this video is available on our YouTube, please share it. Send it out to friends and family members for them to get educated as well. And if you guys have a follow-up, something you'd like us to follow up on to this, or as more information comes out, we can always do a part 2. And bring that information to you. Paul, thank you very much. Next live chat will probably be within the next 2 weeks, and we have a couple things to announce. One, we'll probably have a follow-up to this, and 2 is the next Training for Survival camp up here in Maine. We've been working really hard on all the details for that camp. It's October 23rd to the 26th up here in Maine. You need to pack your bags, plan 5 days away, and come up and join us, and you're going to get really amazing training in dealing with your firearm, both handgun and rifle. And we have some real special rifle classes that Ed and Michael have been putting together that are going to be amazing. A Rifle 101 basic foundational skills class, and then we have a special technicians class for more qualified individuals. So
yeah, that's going to be a challenge. But that'll, believe me, when you get to that one, if you're one of those people who likes to put small holes long distances away, I will teach you how to put together your own dope book. And
you're going to walk away with that.
Yeah, you'll walk away with that. It's a big deal. It's hard. It's the level of people that come to those camps too, Jamie, they're phenomenal. I mean, Jennifer, I'm looking forward to meeting you too.
Yeah,
It'll
and
be-
even though we say there's people that have some experience that come to the camps, there's a lot of people that don't have any experience, or are new to firearms, or have had the firearm inside their house for 15 years and never really got trained on it. And those are the people we like to see at camp as well. There's a large amount of instructors. The instructor to student ratio is very tight, so we make sure you're being handled properly and that you're building your confidence to be able to handle that firearm and deploy that firearm if necessary. There's going to be a handgun track. There's going to be a rifle track. So if you'd like more information, it's not up on our website. We've been advertising to our returning camp attendees, and most of them have taken a good majority of the spots. We will be releasing information to the public. If you're watching this YouTube and you're interested in that information before everyone else, hop onto our website at t4survival.com, click the chat box, send us a message, let us know you're interested in camp information, and I'll give you a call personally and give you all the nitty-gritty and the details for October. Again, it's October 23 through the 26th. Ed, do you want to add anything else in here?
Well, I know a few people on here. American Calamity, if you haven't purchased it, it's my nonfiction dystopian book. That's
on cue.
Nice.
We didn't talk about this.
You're a good man. You're a good man. American Calamity #2. The second book is at the professional editors now. I'm looking forward for that one to come out. It's the book 1 got the reader's 5-star. Book 2, my mom's going through the manuscript. She read it and she gave me her stamp of approval. And there's a bunch of stuff, but that's going to be a good book when it's done. Like I said, I'm looking forward to getting that published.
And I'm going to put a link to Ed's website to purchase this book in the description after this live stream gets posted on YouTube as well, so you can get access and order the book directly. If you bring your book to the October camp, Ed's going to give a nice little signature and an autograph in there for you, and you'll get some special time sitting around the fire pit at night and some great conversations to be had there as well. Part 2, by the way, should be out by October, by the time camp comes.
Oh yeah. Oh, yes.
Yep, book 2, so you could bring the book with you.
Book Locker is my publisher, Jennifer, and out of Georgia, but it's available on Amazon too.
Yep. Great. So, guys, thanks for joining us tonight. We love you all and appreciate you supporting us and being here online. Please share this again. Get the information out. If you're watching this and haven't hit that like button, please do so. And we'll be in touch with you guys. Keep an eye on the YouTube channel. Hit the notification button. We'll let you know when our next live stream, which should be within the next 2 weeks, that will be back online, going over more details and follow up to this. And who knows what else. I'll give my personal prediction that there's going to be a lot more happening in the next few months. This is just getting started. We're just getting started. So be safe, everyone. Keep your head on a swivel, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.